Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the Managing Director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're discussing O and OA retirement visas for Thailand, and we're discussing some differences, the sort of pros and cons. A recent comment on our channel, and I'm going to go ahead and just pull an excerpt from it. Quoting directly, "I actually like it now, as I had an O before," that's an O retirement visa, and had different parts of that 800K, that's 800,000 baht, tied up during the year. And I mean tied up, it has to be in a Thai bank account. With O-A, once they see it, I can spend a little or a lot of it. Plus, you can get the coverage with a biggish co-payment, and it works out cheap, but if the worst happens, you at least have coverage. And I do have to say, this seems to be someone who's trying to see the glass as half full rather than the glass being half empty. But long story short, yes, I understand what he's saying. O retirees, and this came down back in the big joke era, where O retirees had to show the 800,000 baht in a bank account, and then they had to show that it was in the account, I believe it was 2 months prior to the application, and it had to stay in the account 3 months past the application date before it could be used. And even then, it can only go to 400,000 total balance throughout a given calendar year. So there are some restrictions with respect to this. On an OA, now, I presumably think he's talking about seeking one from abroad, and perhaps he's even talking about returning abroad, leaving Thailand, getting a new OA, because it's sort of just a one-off. I sort of look at it as like they take a photo of you at that moment, and if the photo of your finances shows the amount of money they want to see, that is substantial evidence enough. Now, understand, with respect to an extension, even under OA, they are going to be looking at your finances, etc. So yes, these requirements still sort of operate moving forward, but it is a little bit less stringent. I do hear him on that. The other thing is, yeah, there is an insurance requirement, but one is covered. At the same time, on an O retirement visa, not an OA, on an O retirement visa where you don't need insurance, obviously you don't have to deal with that expense, but that can lead to problems down the road, especially for those who have health issues here in Thailand. The other thing with respect to an O retirement visa, generally speaking, not going to be possible to obtain one of those abroad. So if you're outside of Thailand, I'm not talking about people who already had one and are abroad trying to deal with getting back in during COVID. We made a video on that specifically. No, I'm talking about someone who's starting at Go, has nothing. Not going to be possible to get a new O retirement visa from an embassy or consulate outside of Thailand. An O retirement visa extension is generally granted here in Thailand, and it emanates from Thai immigration here internally. They are slightly different in their ramifications. There are pros and cons to each of them. Most notably, we saw issues when the lockdown first occurred where folks that had an O retirement visa, they actually weren't on the list of people that could return. It only pertained to OA at that time. They did later amend that, and we have dealt with folks getting them back in on their O retirement visa, but the amendment took a while. It was a few months. So in that regard, it seems that OA may be a little bit more, I hesitate to use the term prioritized, but that is how Ministry of Foreign Affairs, at least, views the retirement categories. They seem to kind of narrowly focus on the O-A appellation. That said, at the end of the day, it grants a year worth of status here in Thailand as a retiree. Both of them, neither of them can you get work authorization. Work is specifically prohibited in retiree status under whatever label it's granted. And again, a little bit of cosmetic as well as substantive differences between those two categories. That may change. I've made a number of videos in the past about how I think ultimately we'll probably see these two categories kind of converge, but that may take some time. That would require a bit of momentum with respect to the bureaucracy and changing the regulations to make that happen. I think ultimately one day we'll probably see it. It may be later rather than sooner, and it remains to be seen. But for now, we have this differentiation. There are differences. There are pros and cons. We will keep you updated if that is to change as the situation progresses.